Hello everyone, this is Ray of Light, and this is my very first video on YouTube. So, I wanted to give you guys a brief introduction of who I am and what I'm going to be representing on my YouTube channel. It's going to be a variety of different things. I love to cook. I am vegan, so I like to make a lot of vegan dishes, so that's a possibility of transitioning to what I might be doing. But my number one reason for coming on today is for paranormal type of introductions. A little bit about me. I am 26. I currently live in Spain. I live in the southern part of Spain. It is beautiful here. I am in the military, so I continuously travel from country to country. I'm married, and I've had paranormal experiences ever since I was about 9 years old. I don't know what was so, great about that age of 9, but ever since the age of 9, I have had paranormal experiences. So today, I'm going to be giving you the very first paranormal experience I have ever had, and hopefully you guys can, talk back with me and let me know what your experiences were, see if they coincide with one another, what these things could have been. Just, start having a general conversation of what we can expect, or what we cannot expect. You never know. It's a paranormal. Anywho, so anyway, my very first paranormal experience. I was age 9, and my father, he was a military, he was in the Navy, so he was in the Navy for about 20 years. And my parents kind of had me later on in their life, so by the time I had hit 9 years old, my father was actually getting out of the military. And we had moved to a house in Clinton, Mississippi. My father worked at a MEP station, so we, if you probably know what a MEP station is, if you're not military, you don't have a military background, but he worked at something called a MEP station. So he was actually transitioning into the civilian world, and so he decided he wanted to get us a house to kind of have some type of roots, because if you aren't familiar, military children typically move around with their parents wherever they go, so it's really hard to have roots in where you go. Like, people ask me today, where are you from? And I'm like, what do you mean, where was I born? Or where I lived majority of my life? I mean, I don't have a particular location of where I was from. Okay, so anyway, so we lived in Clinton, Mississippi, and my father got us a house. It was a very nice house. It was a one-story house, had a beautiful backyard, had a front porch, had a swing at the front porch. It was nice, it was a typical southern home for, somewhat middle-class, family. So, I remember we had, the way the house was made was that you had the front door, then you had the kitchen, of course, and then the living room, it was the dining room, and then you had a door you can go through from the dining room and make a left, and then you have the hallway that led down to the bedrooms. So my sister's bedroom was the first one on the right-hand side, and then it was my bedroom further down in the hallway on the right-hand side, and then my parents' bedroom was directly across from mine. So, so as I would come home from school, I would notice at the very end of the hallway it was kind of a long hallway, and at the very end of the hallway there was a door which led to a closet, like a linen closet, and it had a full body mirror that was in front of the closet, hanging in front on the door of the closet. So every time I would get off the school bus, and walk to the house, I remember going down that hallway and I always kind of feeling like some very unnerving type of emotions, like I couldn't really explain why I felt that way, but I knew that it was something dark that resided in that home. My parents didn't allow us we were very sheltered as children. We weren't allowed to watch scary movies. We weren't allowed to listen to music that was not Christian. My mother was a very, very, very religious woman. So we basically were not given the opportunity to allow our imaginations to run wild. My sister's 8 years older than me, so she was had a little bit more freedom compared to what I did. She watched, scary movies sometimes. But I was never allowed to watch those things, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom, so she would always look after me, particularly to make sure that I didn't watch anything that wasn't appropriate for my age range. So um, I really couldn't explain why I felt that way in that hallway. I mean, because it's not like I had anything to influence an overactive imagination to feeling something negative down the hallway. I don't know. It was just one of those things, I guess. So as I would get out the bus, I would go down the hallway, and I would always have some very strange feeling inside, like something was standing there and was watching me. And I really didn't tell anybody or pay much attention to it because I was just like, whatever, I don't know what it is. So it all started like at the age of 9, exactly when I turned 9 years old. I remember going home, and it was after my birthday party. My parents kind of got into a really bad argument, and during that time frame when I was the age of 9, that's when my parents were starting to file for divorce. A lot of negative things were going on. There was a little bit of alcohol abuse happening in the home, so it was a lot of, I guess it was like a playground for negative entities to kind of like, want to reside in. So I was sleeping. I was in my room one day, and it was my bedtime, and I was getting ready for bed. I remember I laid down in the bed, and I was just laying down. I finally dozed off to sleep, and it had to be like around 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 1. I don't really remember exactly the time, but I remember I had shot up out of my bed really quickly, and I was just drenching in sweat. And it was during my birthday is in February, so it was during the time frame where it was so cold outside. So there was no way that that the heat from outside or whatever could have made my body temperature raise to that certain level. And my mother and father didn't keep the heat on full blast because they just were kind of a little conservative when it came down to trying to save money, so they kept it at a normal temperature. So I remember jumping, shooting straight out of bed and being drenched in sweat, and I was terrified. I don't know why I was terrified, but I was completely terrified. And I remember I just sat there in my bed, and all of a sudden I heard about 10 to 15 people talking at one time, and it was just like they were like in a whisper type of tone. All these people whispering at once, and they were in my room. I know they were in my room because they were coming directly from my bed. Like my bed, was next to the window, and I heard them maybe at the foot of my bed whispering all at one time. And I just sat there, and I just looked around the room, and I was trying to find out maybe the TV. My mom has the TV on, but there was no way. The whispers were way too loud. I couldn't make out what they were saying. Honestly, it sounded like they were speaking a foreign language. But I just remember hearing all these whispers at once, and it was so scary. So I stayed in my bed, and I just looked around the room trying to figure out where that could be coming from, and I called my mom. I was just like, Ma, call your mom. She's always gonna save you. So my mom came in my room, and she was like, what do you want? And I was kind of embarrassed to tell her what I heard. And I didn't want to sound crazy, and I'm only 9, but you don't want to sound crazy. So I asked her, I said, what are you doing? Like in a really sweet voice, like, what are you doing? I'm curious. And she was like, I'm praying in the house. My mother was a very religious woman. She prayed constantly. She was, her answer to everything was pray about it. So, she said she was just praying in the house. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't tell her anything. I didn't tell her what I heard, and she's like, go back to bed, Ray, go back to bed. And I was like, okay, good night, and lay back down, and finally fell back to sleep. Maybe about an hour or 2 later, I was laying in bed, and I remember opening my eyes and looking around and feeling as if someone was on top of me. It was a heavy pressure on my chest, and I felt as if someone was either like sitting on top of me or laying on top of me, maybe. I don't really know how to explain that, but I remember feeling as if someone was laying on top of me. I was, of course, terrified, and the worst thing about it was I was paralyzed. I felt as if I could not move. I remember my eyes were open, and I was fully conscious to what was happening. I hear about, sleep paralysis and typically those people aren't 100% conscious and aware of what's happening in the area. Maybe they have their eyes closed still, or whatever the case may be. But in this situation, I was completely aware that someone was in the room and they were laying on top of my chest, and I had my eyes completely open. I'm looking around my room, and I mean, this lasted for about, felt like a lifetime, but it maybe lasted for about maybe 2 to 4 minutes. And that's a long time, honestly, you know. So I'm just looking around the room, and my eyes are just like darting back and forth, darting back and forth. And I'm like, what is this? I don't see any mask. I don't see a black mask. I don't see anything on top of me, but I know I feel it. Um, so I just kind of just, you know, laid there, and my mom, being the religious woman she is, it's always stuck to my head that if you feel anything or if you are scared, pray. You know, so the first thing I did, I couldn't speak, you know, like I would actually try to speak, and it sounded like as if someone had their hand over my mouth. It would be like, you know, I felt as if someone had their hand over my mouth. Very terrifying. So I remember praying in my head. I prayed, and I was just like, God, please make this stop. I don't know what is happening. Help me, help me, help me. That's all I could think of was help me. And as soon as I prayed, it stopped, just like that. You know, whatever it was on top of me left. And I was just sitting in my bed, and I was just, once again, just kind of like in shock to what was going on. I didn't tell my family. I honestly, my mom doesn't even know to this day what used to happen to me in that house. But that was the beginning of my paranormal experiences. So if you'd like to hear more of my stories and what has happened to me from the age of 9 all the way to present day, stick with me. Subscribe to my channel. Press the like button if you want to hear more stories. And hopefully we can get some type of ongoing communication. All right. Have a good one. Bye.